It was that great theologian Jim Morrison from The Doors who once said, "The important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. You trade in your reality for a role. You trade in your sense for an act. You give up your ability to feel and in exchange put on a mask. There can't be any large-scale revolution until there's a personal revolution. On an individual level," he says, "it's got to happen inside first." Break on through to the other side. I mean, that's exactly what it was, yeah. Now, I don't know about any of you jubilants, but I am ready for a revolution. And when I look around the world these days, I am very tempted to fall into despair. I'm tempted to be cynical. I'm tempted to hate those that I perceive as responsible for everything that is wrong with the world. But if we want a revolution that lasts, this isn't about winning a battle, only to have a victory reversed by the next group in power. We've got to look for what real freedom is about. Jim Morrison tells us we can only find that when we remember who we really are. There is no large-scale revolution until there is a personal revolution. On the individual level, it's got to happen inside first. Jubilants, we are not these bodies. We are not our politics. We're not our religion. We're not even who we were yesterday. We are the light of the world. We are innocent children of God, and we have the power to save this world. If only we'd stop looking outside of ourselves for all of the answers. Jim Morrison knew. He knew this. He said revolution begins within first. If we ever hope to have true revolution on a large scale, to see it outside of ourselves, you got to see it inside first. That's because the world around us is a direct reflection of the inner world. And if you want a world where everybody is treated with love, with respect, with equity, with love, that's the world you got to create inside first. It can be simultaneous. We can walk and chew gum. We can do two things at once. But as we're creating more of that loving world inside, more of the loving world appears outside. It's a law. It just happens. And we know it's not an easy task because the world around us remains in such a recalcitrant state. But the Holy invites us in every moment, jubilants, to practice revolution by removing all the barriers that we have constructed that prevents us from living into who we really are, from living into that love that we are, that created us, and that light that we have in us that will change the world. Because when we can get that, and the revolution begins within, then the whole world will begin to say,
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know about any of the rest of y'all, but I'm really kind of tired of living in this world. I mean, really. The past few years have been overwhelming, frightening even. A pandemic, wars, rumors of wars, government institutions being overrun by radicals and conspiracy theorists, mass shootings become a daily non-event. Oh, another one of those? All right. The Supreme Court bent on taking back hard-won rights, putting us back by years. A minority party stacking the legal system, gaming the voting mechanisms of this country to the point where the majority may never, ever, ever get to be elected again. The rollback of civil rights. November scares me, y'all. It does. Some days it's just too much. Some days I really do feel despair about this world. But you didn't come here to hear that. You know it. So how about some good news? How about some good news? You don't have to live in this world anymore. And I know that sounded very cult leader-like.
Kool-Aid. everyone.
That's right, Kool-Aid for everyone. We don't have to live here anymore. No, that's not what I'm talking about at all. But there is something short of Kool-Aid that we can do. What? Musk? Oh. No, that man's name does not need to leave my lips. But okay.
I'll say it.
I know, you're a fan. But Beth. But there is something, Jubilance, that we can do to change this world forever without any fear of any gains being reversed. But it will require changing the way you think. It will require your imagination to create a new way to live. Certainly, many of us are doing all we can to reverse the trend, and we're using the tools that we have at our disposal. But these are tools that we have used in the past, and they have served us very well. We protest. There was a big march in Washington yesterday. We put our bodies on the line. We write. We call our representatives. We make our views known. We go to the ballot box every time it's made available, whether the election is for dog catcher or president, and every office in between. We agitate, we resist, we gather, we hold signs, we shout slogans, we stand vigil, and they have worked. Those tactics have been successful before. Laws have been changed. Women got the right to vote. They got the right to hold office. They got the right to have their own bank accounts and buy property. And that was just in the 70s, people. That was just in the 70s. Women, for a time, gained control of their own reproductive rights. Gays and lesbians won the right to love one another in private and then in public as marriage rights were granted. Black people were set free from slavery, allowed to marry across racial lines, and granted equal rights in voting, jobs, and all other areas of life. Schools got integrated. We even became enlightened enough for one hot minute to elect a black president. And women have been selected for the highest courts in the land. People of color have ascended into positions of power and prestige. Jubilance, we have come a long way in this country in the fight for equality, for equity, and civil rights. But of course, the clock has been turned back on a lot of that progress. We find ourselves again in the midst of a familiar fight for our rights, and many of us are tired. We thought we had won the victory already, and now here we are. We're at square one in many areas and facing more setbacks in the future. But the new way that I am suggesting this morning can create a more permanent state of love and peace and joy in this world by creating what A Course in Miracles calls the happy dream. And if you'll notice, there are 2 new stickers up here on my podium that I put on here last week. One of them over here says, "Begin within." And this one says, "The revolution will not be violent." And I think these are the 2 ingredients that I think are missing in the world. And they're missing from these old ways that we have sought to bring about the more permanent change to save this world. I believe that everything we do is infused with the spirit in which we do it. So protesting is great, but if we're protesting out of a sense of anger or feeling treated unjustly or unfairly, all we do is just bring more anger, more indignity, more injustice into the world. But if we begin within, cultivating the peace and freedom and equity and equality that we seek outside of ourselves, if we begin within first, then when we join the protest march, we create more peace, more freedom, more equity, and equality. The protests that I have attended over the years, and there have been many of them, they've all been nonviolent on their face, but I know in my own heart that while I'm standing there in the protest line, I am carrying a sense of anger. I am carrying a sense of hatred for my perceived opponent. I have harbored violence inside toward those that I see as oppressing me or my community in some way. But this new revolution that I'm talking about, it takes nonviolence to a new level, not just in action, but in belief and thought. We cannot advance the cause of love in the world as long as any unloving thought or belief finds quarter in our own heart or in our own mind. It seems simple, right? Get your heart and your mind right. heal all your inner battles, all your shame and despair, and watch the world transform. And of course, your eyes are just rolling right now. Oh, yeah, right, preacher. Okay. We've tried that inner peace and inner light stuff, and it just doesn't work. You know, it reminds me of a quote from G.K. Chesterton, who once said this about Christianity: "The Christian ideal has not been tried and found wanting. It has been found difficult and left untried." I'm going to revise that to say, the inner way to a permanent outward nonviolent revolution of love has not been tried and found wanting. It has been found difficult and left untried. Why do we find it so difficult to heal the world within so the outer world will heal? Because the inner revolution of love requires us to see clearly that this world is but a dream that we have concocted with our collective egos. And it requires us to remember who we truly are: innocent, originally blessed, beloved children of God who have the power to bring the light of love into the world and totally transform it from despair into joy. But the most difficult thing about this inner path to revolution is this: we have to give up our grievances against one another. Ooh, what? You mean I can't hate that dirty so-and-so? No. We must remember that even those we hate with its purest forms of hatred are also innocent. They're also originally blessed. They're beloved children of God who also have the power to bring the light of love into this world and totally transform it from despair to joy. Yeah, even Donald Trump, even Lindsey Graham, even those 5 Supreme Court justices that you don't like anymore or ever did. Even your neighbor who believes all the conspiracy theories. Everyone whom you feel is separate from you is you. They are just like you. They are an extension of God into this world. The difference is they've been so thoroughly hoodwinked by the ego that they forget their divine innocence of original blessing. They are blinded to the light of love that they carry within them. If you are unwilling to believe that, then yeah. If you're unwilling to believe that even those people you say you hate are the divine light of God somehow, then sure, yeah, the inner revolution of love will fail miserably. It always has, because we can't get past the, oh, I can't have a grievance. You can't get past that. Because we love our grievances. Oh, Lord. Go on Facebook for 5 minutes. All those people in love with their grievances. Everybody's wrong. I'm right. You say you want a revolution, jubilants? Well, you know, we all want to change the world. But if you're talking about destruction, you can count me out. If you're talking about an inner revolution of love, though, that completely changes us from ego-driven to higher divine self-driven in the world, then you can count me in. Because as a Course says, once we realize that each of us is the light of the world and we join our minds together in this light, then we will proclaim the realm of God in this place together and as one. And that's a revolution that I will sign up for any day. Breathe deep. How many of us here today grew up in a time of rotary phones or even at the tail end of them? Oh, yeah. Do you remember your old home phone number? Anybody?
Yes. I used to.
Yeah.
We can all do it. We can all do it.
Yep. Yeah.
803 427 8068. Yeah.
8675309. Yeah. It was on a wall. Oh, there you go.
Oh.
So mine was 404-945-9470. I know it. These days, we got cell phones that remember numbers for you, and I just read a recent study that said it's eating away at our memory. We don't remember GPS's cell phones. We don't remember crap anymore. Heaven forbid if I get arrested for anything, because my one phone call is going to be to whoever has my childhood phone number now. Hello, I'm in jail. No, I don't know how you can get a hold of her. I don't know. Oh, man. But that old world where rotary phones and having to remember everybody's number is gone. It's gone away. It's never coming back. We don't use that tool anymore because we don't need it. We got new tools. For better or worse, we have replaced things we once thought as indispensable. That landline, man, that's your lifeline. It's indispensable. Just as rotary phones, though, have gone the way of the dodo, I believe our old tools of revolution are suffering the same fate and need to be set aside. Sure, there was a time when both rotary phones and cell phones existed together, right? You still had your landline. You were clinging to that landline, just a few years ago, I gave up the landline because you just put it together. If one is good, then both of them are even better. But this moment, I believe, this moment in history is one of transition, just like that time was. So yeah, let's go out, let's protest, let's write letters, let's vote, let's get others registered to vote and out to the polls. But let us also try this new way that has been found difficult and left untried. If you don't believe me that a revolution from the inside out is possible, let me give you a solid piece of fact and example. Look at those you call your opponents. We are here today. We are where we are in our politics and society because they did this difficult thing of becoming true believers in their cause. They had no doubt in their hearts and minds that this day of victory would come for them, not one doubt. No matter the setbacks they suffered, no matter how slow the process may have been, they never lost heart. They never lost their vision of what they wanted. They truly became the change they wanted to see in the world. And I always say those quotes go both ways. Be the change you want to see in the world isn't all about love and light. Sometimes people really do want a dark and oppressive world, and they become that change. So when you think, oh, preacher, that love and light stuff, it's not as strong as hatred and fear. Oh, it's stronger. You just don't believe it yet. You just can't imagine it yet. You just haven't dedicated yourself to making it true. What if we did? Instead of leading with hearts that want to repress, suppress, control, or deny rights to those around us, what if we led with hearts that want nothing but love and joy to permeate this world? What if we led with our soul instead of our ego? Because the ego wants to be right, but our soul wants freedom. When we lead from ego, when we seek to impose our beliefs on others so we can feel right, that's what's happening right now. It's all ego. Then we create the world we have now. When we lead from soul, when we lead from who we really are, love, peace, joy, the higher divine self that knows only freedom, then we create a world of equity, of love, of peace and joy where everyone is respected and everyone is cared for. And how do we do that? How do we begin within and create the nonviolent revolution love that we crave, the world that we want? First, I think we have to be willing to allow the world we see now to collapse. It is collapsing. We have to see that. We are so afraid that if this world that we know, and especially the form of government that we know, collapses, that all we will be left with is authoritarianism and fascism. That's what we think. It's what we believe. We bemoan the state of humanity in this moment. But what if, jubilants, what if, instead of falling into despair, we double down on the original goodness of every single one of us, and we fully believe that in the face of a collapse, we could find our way back to one another, instead of separating more, and create a world of equanimity and justice grounded in those principles of real love? What if, jubilants, what if we so thoroughly believed in a world built on love that we were willing to do whatever it takes to bring it to fruition, just as those with a different vision have done so? If you are interested in trying this difficult thing, of beginning within to create a nonviolent revolution of love, a course tells us how we can develop this holy perception that sees only love and brings us into heaven in this moment. First, like the sticker says, we begin within. We understand that we are all in this together because we are all one spirit, unified in one creator. And when we know without a doubt our unity, then we lose nothing by becoming God's love and light in the world. We're not called to sacrifice, we're just called to love. Secondly, our loving perception of the world will lead us to stop attacking each other, whether out here physically or in here in our heart or mind. In fact, if we are so dedicated to our revolution of love, a Course tells us we will become incapable of attack. We just won't even think to do it. Our first thought will always be to love and not hate. Finally, a Course says, when we can see only unity and love, our minds of separation are healed. And this is the passage that just gives me hope in this moment. When we can see only unity and love, jubilants, the ego disappears. The Course says the ego will not be destroyed because it is part of your thought, but because it is uncreative and therefore unsharing, it will be reinterpreted to release you from fear. The part of your mind that you have given to the ego will merely return to the kingdom where your whole mind belongs. If you practice love long enough, your ego dissolves. It disappears. You just don't have it anymore because you're fully healed. This is the revolution we are called to lead in this world, a nonviolent revolution from within that heals us so completely that our ego disappears because it is healed and fully integrated with our higher divine self. Imagine living in an egoless world, a world where love is the rule. We all gain what we need. Everyone becomes incapable of attacking anyone else. You may say I'm a dreamer. I'm not the only one, I assure you.
We got Bob.
We got Bob. That's powerful right there. Jubilants, this old world is trying to leave. It is becoming unbearable, but a new world is trying to emerge. And the question for us is, are we willing to give birth to it? Are we willing to be the midwives of this revolution of love? Are we willing to try something new and radical in service to love? If you are, here are some practices. I like to give you something practical you can do. But here are some practices you can do now to bring about this new world by seeing it through the eyes of love. I want you to take time, maybe not today, it's a little rainy, but take time to reconnect with this wonderful creation. Go out for a walk in the woods and just notice your interdependence on everything in this world. The sunshine, the soil, the trees. We call them resources, the Department of Natural Resources. But these are our brothers and sisters. These are our siblings out in the world. We are interconnected. We don't spend enough time in nature. I know I don't. I am a big fan of the great indoors. But go out. Look around. Appreciate your interdependence on this earth. And then go to Walmart. And appreciate your interdependence with all the people, even in Walmart. That's a spiritual practice right there. Go to Walmart and love everybody. Challenge accepted? I don't know. Field trip. Meditate. Do some meditation. 5 minutes a day. Just any moment where you can take to connect with this present moment. Because that's where divinity lives. And maybe the hardest of all, forgive those that you blame for the source of all the world's problems. Some of that's going to involve some self-forgiveness, and maybe that's the hardest part. But most of all, so see your interdependence in nature, see your interdependence at the Walmart, meditate, forgive, but most of all, be in service to those around you. And it doesn't have to be huge. Just practice even small acts of kindness, giving joy wherever you go. Smile at a stranger, talk to the cashier at a grocery store, hold a door open for somebody. Whatever you do, make an effort in every moment to remind yourself of your unity, of our interdependence, to see God's light of love in everyone you meet, maybe especially if they're sporting a hat or a bumper sticker that offends you. Maybe especially. If you take these baby steps now, you will find yourself growing more and more into that realization of our oneness, our interdependence. And as you deepen your practice of an inner revolution of love, one day, you will just find yourself incapable of hating anyone, or attacking anyone, or seeing anyone as your enemy. And in that moment, jubilants, your ego will disappear because it's fully healed, and it will just slip into the light of love along with everything else in the world. At that point, jubilance, A Course in Miracles says, sufficient qualitative change occurs to produce a real, sufficient quantitative change, this is a difficult sentence, sufficient quantitative change occurs to produce a real qualitative shift. In other words, at this point, you will have so revolutionized your inner world to the point that only love remains, that your outer world must follow suit. It's just a law. I invite you, jubilants, ponder this truth this morning. If enough of us are willing to fully live these two principles, begin within, and the revolution will not be violent, then don't you know, it's going to be all right.